Hello, and welcome. Welcome to English Awakened. I'm your host, James, and I am so glad you've decided to join me today because we are going to dive into a truly powerful way to learn English. Today, we're talking about something called the chunking method. Now, if that sounds a bit confusing, don't worry at all. My goal is to make it super simple. I'll explain exactly what it is, and then we'll look at lots of practical examples together. By the end of this episode, you'll have a clear understanding of how this method can help you speak English much more naturally and with a lot more confidence. Let's get started. So, what exactly is this chunking method that I keep mentioning? Well, at its heart, it's a very simple idea.
Instead of looking at English as just a string of individual words, one after the other, the chunking method teaches us to see and learn language in natural, meaningful groups of words. We call these groups chunks.
Think about it like this. Imagine you're building something with Legos. You could pick up one tiny brick at a time, or you could have pre-assembled sections, like a whole wall or a roof part. Those pre-assembled sections, those are your chunks. You don't have to think about putting every single brick together. You just grab the whole piece and it fits. In English, these chunks are common phrases, expressions, or groups of words that native speakers use all the time without even thinking about it. They just flow together naturally. By learning these ready-made building blocks, you can put sentences together much faster and they will sound much more natural. You're learning units of meaning, not just individual words. So why is this chunking method such a game changer for learning English? Well, there are several big reasons. First off, it dramatically improves your fluency. When you learn language in chunks, you're not trying to translate word by word in your head anymore. Instead, you're recalling entire phrases, which means you can speak much more smoothly and quickly. This also significantly reduces hesitation. Imagine you want to say, "I'm looking forward to it." If you've learned "I'm looking forward to it" as one chunk, it just comes out naturally. You don't pause to think about looking, then forward, then to. It's just one fluid thought. And because of this, your conversations will start to flow much more naturally. You'll sound less like you're constructing sentences and more like you're actually having a conversation. Perhaps one of the most powerful benefits is that chunking helps you speak with the rhythm and intonation of a native speaker. Native speakers don't usually emphasize every single word. They have natural rises and falls, and certain words are stressed more than others within a phrase. When you learn a chunk like, "How are you doing?" you're learning the natural rhythm of that phrase, not just the individual words. This helps you sound much more authentic and less like you're just putting dictionary words together. It's about speaking more like a native rather than just translating word by word. Okay, so we understand what chunks are and why they are so incredibly useful. The next big question is, how do you actually spot these valuable language chunks in real life? This is where you can start training your ear and your eye. The key is to become more aware of how native English speakers, whether native or highly fluent, naturally put words together.
One of the best ways to start is by paying very close attention to common word pairings. Think about words that almost always go together. For example, we don't usually say quick food. We say fast food or heavy rain, not big rain. These are little chunks, even if they're just two words.
Also, listen for fixed expressions. These are phrases where the words are set and you can't really change them without it sounding strange. Things like, "It's raining cats and dogs," or "break a leg." You learn these as complete units. And perhaps most importantly, look and listen for phrases that frequently appear together. This could be in a conversation you're having, a podcast you're listening to, a TV show you're watching, or a book you're reading.
Whenever you hear or read something that sounds very natural, or that you hear repeatedly, try to see if it's a chunk. It's about noticing those little pre-packaged phrases that native speakers use all the time without even thinking about them. All right, now that we've talked about what chunks are and how you can start to spot them, let's dive into some real, everyday examples. These are the kinds of phrases you'll hear and use constantly. We'll start with some very simple conversational phrases. Think about how you greet someone. Instead of saying, "How are you?" word by word, most people naturally say, "How are you doing?" That entire phrase, "How are you doing?" is a chunk. It's not about analyzing how, are, you, and doing separately. It's one complete unit of meaning. When you hear it, or when you say it, your brain processes it as one package. Similarly, when you meet someone new, you'll often hear, "Nice to meet you." This isn't usually broken down into its individual words. It's a complete, polite chunk that serves a specific social function. It's like a pre-recorded message you play in that situation. Think about other common goodbyes. "See you later" is a chunk. "Have a good day" is another chunk. These are phrases that are used so frequently, they've become single, recognizable units.
Learning these kinds of phrases as chunks helps you in several ways. First, you don't have to think about grammar rules or word order for each individual word every time you want to use them. You just use the whole chunk. Second, it helps you sound more natural. Native speakers use these chunks without even thinking about them. They don't build them word by word. They just recall the entire unit. By doing the same, you start to speak with that natural flow and rhythm. It truly transforms how you sound. All right, let's build on those simple conversational chunks we just talked about. Now, I want to introduce you to some other really important types of chunks that will truly boost your English. First, let's talk about something called collocations. These are words that naturally go together. While you could technically say do a decision or have a break, native speakers almost always say make a decision or take a break. Make a decision is a chunk. Take a break is a chunk. You learn these as complete units. Trying to change the verb often sounds unnatural or even wrong to a native ear. When you learn them as a pair, as a chunk, you automatically get the correct natural sounding combination. Think about other common ones. We do the laundry, we don't make the laundry. We catch a cold, we don't get a cold in the same way. These are all examples of collocations that function as chunks. Learning them this way saves you from making common mistakes and makes your English sound much more natural. Another incredibly common type of chunk in English is phrasal verbs. These are verbs combined with a preposition or an adverb, and they often have a meaning that's totally different from the individual words.
For example, look forward to. If you just look at look and forward, it doesn't really make sense, right? But look forward to means to be excited about something that's going to happen. It's one chunk. You look forward to your vacation. You don't look and then separately forward to your vacation.
Or consider get along with. This chunk means to have a good relationship with someone. I get along with my colleagues. Again, it's one meaningful unit. Trying to understand get and along separately in this context won't work. Learning phrasal verbs as chunks is essential. There are thousands of them, and they're used all the time in everyday conversations. When you treat them as single units of meaning, they become much easier to understand and use correctly. So you're probably asking, how do I actually use this chunking method in my daily life? That's a great question, and it's simpler than you might think. The first step is to become a detective for chunks. When you're listening to English, whether it's a podcast like this one, a TV show, or a conversation, don't just focus on individual words. Try to hear the groups of words that stick together to create meaning. For example, when someone says, "How are you doing today?" Hear that as one unit. How are you doing today? Don't break it down into 4 separate words. Listen for the rhythm. The second important step is active repetition. Once you spot a chunk, repeat it aloud. Say it to yourself. See it in front of a mirror. See it as you walk around. Get your mouth and your brain used to producing that entire chunk. Don't just repeat the words. Try to mimic the intonation and the natural flow that you heard. This helps build muscle memory in your mouth for these common phrases. And finally, the most crucial step. Consciously try to use these chunks in your own speaking and writing. This is where the real learning happens.
If you learned make a decision, actively look for opportunities to use it. Instead of saying, I will decide soon, try, I will make a decision soon. The more you consciously try to integrate these chunks into your own output, the more natural they will become. It's like building with those pre-made blocks we talked about earlier. Now, as beneficial as the chunking method is, there are a few common things to watch out for. Firstly, avoid trying to chunk overly large or very complex sentences right at the start. That can be overwhelming. It's much better to begin with shorter, simpler phrases and then gradually expand as you get more comfortable. Secondly, and this is vital, always understand the context in which a chunk is used. A group of words can mean different things depending on the situation. Don't just memorize the phrase. Observe how it's naturally used in conversations and texts. Knowing when and why to use a chunk is key to sounding natural. All right, so we've talked a lot about the chunking method today. Now, I want to give you a very simple challenge. Right after this episode, take a moment. Think about just a few new chunks that you learned about, or maybe some that you identified yourself during our discussion. It could be something like, how are you doing?
Or make a decision, or even a phrasal verb like look forward to. Your challenge is to actively try and use those specific chunks. Try them in your next English conversation. Try them in your next writing practice. Even just say them out loud to yourself a few times. The goal is to start putting them into action. So to quickly recap everything we've talked about today, the chunking method truly is like a secret weapon for learning English. It helps you speak with much greater fluency. You'll find yourself hesitating less, and words will come to you more easily. It also makes your English sound much more natural. By learning these groups of words, you'll start to adopt the rhythm and intonation of native speakers instead of translating word by word. And overall, it just makes your entire learning process so much more efficient. You're building with ready-made blocks, which speeds everything up. This method is genuinely powerful for anyone who is serious about truly mastering English. Give it a try. Thank you so much for tuning in today. It means a lot to me that you're here, joining us on English Awakened. If you found this episode helpful, please consider subscribing to the podcast. That way, you won't miss any future episodes designed to help you on your English journey. And if you have a moment, leaving a review really helps others discover the show. And sharing it with a friend who is also learning English would be amazing. Remember, consistent practice, especially with this powerful chunking method, will truly and significantly enhance your English. Just keep at it. Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep awakening your English skills. I look forward to having you join me next time, right here on English Awakened.